Hello friends, today I am your storyteller. I hope you will enjoy this story. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can receive your love and support. Now let's begin the story. I was 11 years old the summer it happened. Old enough to stay home by myself for a few hours, but still too young to understand what real danger actually felt like. My parents always said summer was supposed to be the fun season, a break from school, a chance to ride bikes around the neighborhood, play ball at the park, and catch fireflies when the sun dipped below the horizon. But that particular summer, July of 2004 in Ashland, Ohio, still lives in my memory for all the wrong reasons. It started out like any other summer day. I had been at the public pool with my best friend Ethan until the storm clouds rolled in. By the time my mom picked me up, the sky was an ugly mix of gray and green. Rain slapped against the windshield as she drove us home, muttering, "Storm's rolling in early today. Guess we'll have to cancel dinner with the Parkers." But later, everything changed. My dad worked as a sales rep for a medical equipment company, and my mom was a nurse at the local hospital. Most nights they were home, but every now and then, work pulled them away. That night, they were supposed to attend a dinner party about 30 minutes away. It wasn't supposed to last long, but the storm turned everything upside down. I still remember my mom crouching down in the kitchen before they left. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Jake, remember the rules. Lock the doors, don't open for anyone, keep the blinds shut, and if anything happens, call us right away." "Mom, I'm not a baby," I muttered, rolling my eyes. Dad chuckled and ruffled my hair. "He'll be fine, Carol. He's got this. Right, champ?" I nodded, proud that my dad trusted me, even though I was secretly a little nervous about staying alone during a thunderstorm. What they didn't know, and what I would regret later, was that I didn't do half the things they asked me to do. The rain didn't let up. In fact, it got worse. By 7 o'clock, the thunder was rattling the walls, and lightning was flashing so bright it looked like daylight for a split second before plunging everything back into darkness. I sat on the living room couch, eating Doritos straight from the bag, flipping through channels. The storm outside only made it cozier inside, or at least that's what I told myself. My mom called around 8:30. "Jake, honey, we're stuck here for the night. The roads are too bad. We'll be home in the morning, okay?" "Okay," I said, pretending not to care. "Did you lock all the doors?" She pressed. "Yeah, Mom. Everything's locked." That was a lie. At that age, I thought locking doors was overkill. Who would want to break into our boring suburban home anyway? At some point, I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, the TV screen was black, stuck in sleep mode. The house felt freezing. I remember hugging myself, shivering. I rubbed my arms and whispered out loud, "Why is it so cold in here?" The heater must have gone out, I thought. The storm probably knocked something out. But then I remembered what my mom had said. Lock the doors, shut the blinds, make sure everything's sealed. Guilt crawled into my stomach. I knew I hadn't done it. So reluctantly, I got off the couch and started walking around the house. I locked the front door. I checked the back sliding glass door. I closed the blinds in the kitchen. One by one, I went through the list. But when I pressed my hand against the window above the kitchen sink, I froze. It was wide open. Rain was dripping inside, pooling along the counter. I slammed the window shut, muttering, "Crap, crap, crap." That's when I heard it, upstairs. A faint creak, like someone shifting their weight on the floorboards. I stopped breathing for a second, listening hard. The storm was so loud it was impossible to be sure, but my gut told me it wasn't the wind. "Probably the house settling," I whispered to myself, but my gut wouldn't let it go. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer and crept toward the stairs. My hand was shaking so badly the beam wobbled across the walls. Halfway up, lightning flashed outside, lighting up the hallway. That's when I noticed something that made my chest tighten. My bedroom door was open. I had left it shut. I stepped inside my room, trying to be brave. My posters of Spider-Man and the Cleveland Indians seemed to mock me, like they were watching me with pity. The sound came again. Creak! I shined the flashlight across the carpet toward my closet. The door was slightly ajar. "Nope," I muttered, backing out of the room, but I couldn't move fast enough. Lightning struck again, and in that brief burst of white light, I swore I saw a shadow shift behind the closet door. My chest locked up. My legs felt like cement. Then with every ounce of strength, I bolted out of the room and ran downstairs. I crawled under the dining room table, clutching the flashlight against my chest. I wanted to call my parents, but the house phone was in the kitchen, 10 feet away, and I couldn't risk making a sound. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow at first, then faster, then stumbling, like someone half running, half falling down the stairs. The sound was so unnatural it made my skin crawl. "Please, God," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. The footsteps reached the dining room. I pressed myself into the carpet, praying they wouldn't look under the table. Then I saw them, 2 bare feet, covered in mud, scratched and bleeding, like the person had been running through thorn bushes. The skin looked yellowish under the dim light. I held my breath, biting my hand to stop myself from screaming. The figure dropped something. Clang! A wrench hit the floor inches from my face. If they bent down to pick it up, they'd see me. Seconds felt like hours. But instead of picking it up, the figure stumbled away, dragging their feet across the tile. I heard them wander into the kitchen, then the living room, then back toward the front door. Finally, mercifully, the door creaked open, slammed shut. Silence. I stayed under that table for what felt like forever. When I finally crawled out, the storm was still raging outside, but the house felt deathly quiet. The wrench was still lying there. I picked it up, my hands trembling. By the time my parents came home the next morning, I had hidden the wrench under my bed. I told them everything was fine. It wasn't until years later that I admitted the truth. My mom cried. My dad got pale. He said, "Jake, you could have been killed." Even now as an adult, I can still feel that coldness in the air, the silence under the table, the muddy feet inches from my face. I never found out who it was. A drifter, a burglar, someone escaping the storm. But I know one thing for sure. That summer night changed me forever. I've never slept in complete darkness since. And every single night, without fail, I make sure every door and window in my house is locked tight. Because sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones already inside. Story 2. I don't usually share things like this, but every summer when the nights get hot and the windows are left cracked open, I find myself thinking about what happened years ago. It wasn't a one-time thing. It stretched on for almost 4 years of my childhood, and it's the kind of memory that burrows into you. I'm older now, but the fear from those nights still clings to me, and I've never been able to shake the feeling that there was something more going on than anyone ever admitted. I grew up in a small suburban neighborhood outside Charleston, South Carolina. It wasn't a dangerous area by any stretch. Quiet cul-de-sacs, white fences, kids playing in sprinklers on the weekends. The kind of place where people rarely lock their doors. I was about 7 when all of this started, and by then, my world was small. School, home, the backyard, my friends on the same block. That summer was humid and full of thunderstorms. I remember it clearly because that's when the first dream happened. I was lying in bed, but it wasn't like normal dreams where you're just in it. Instead, I was floating above my room, watching myself from the ceiling, almost like a security camera was angled straight down at me. My little body under the covers, my desk piled with books, the baseball glove I'd left on the floor. Everything looked normal, but the sensation of being out of my body filled me with dread. I tried to move, tried to float back into myself, but the only thing I could do was turn my head and look around. That's when I noticed details that weren't right. My alarm clock on the nightstand wasn't ticking forward. The numbers were rolling backward. My walls had drawings taped to them that I knew I'd never made. Crayon sketches of people holding hands in front of a house with a blue roof. Always the same. Always with one smaller figure, who I assumed was me. And then I noticed the toy train, an old plastic one I had lost years before, sitting in different spots on the floor every time. It always ended the same way. I'd look toward my window, and a man would be there, inches from the glass. He had short gray hair, a pale, hard face, and a cut, almost like a scar, across his left temple. He would watch me for a few seconds before scratching at the window like he was trying to open it. That's when I'd wake up, heart pounding, too terrified to move. After the third or fourth time, I told my parents, "Nightmares aren't uncommon," my mom said gently, rubbing my back. "They'll pass," my dad added. "And remember, we're just one room away. You're safe here." I nodded, pretending it helped, but it didn't. Not when the dreams felt so real. My dad, sensing I was still shaken, walked me around the outside of the house one night. We checked the windows, the doors, the backyard. Nothing, no footprints, no marks. But even then, I couldn't shake the dread. The dreams didn't happen every night, maybe once every few months. But each time they came back, it was exactly the same. Same drawings, same backward clock, same man at the window. And then after about a year, they just stopped. For almost 6 months, I didn't have a single one. I let myself believe it was over. One sticky summer night, I had the dream again. Everything was as I remembered. My view from the ceiling, the drawings, the train. But this time, something was different. My bedroom window was open. I jolted awake in a cold sweat, but I couldn't move. Complete sleep paralysis. My brain screamed at me to get up, check the window, lock it. But my body was frozen. What made it worse was the chill I felt on my skin, like real night air was seeping into the room. For 5 agonizing minutes, I was convinced that the man was climbing inside. When I finally regained movement, I lunged for the window. Locked, shut tight. Nothing outside. I didn't sleep again that night. Months later, after I had another dream, I decided to tell my parents every detail. I described the man, the scar on his forehead. My dad's face changed. He cut me off mid-sentence. "Are you sure about the cut?" he asked sharply. I told him I was. He exchanged a look with my mom, one of those silent exchanges parents have when they don't want their kid to notice. But I noticed. I pressed them about it. They brushed it off. It wasn't until a week later that they finally sat me down. "There's something we never told you," my mom said softly. "When you were little, too little to remember, there was a man named Brian. He wasn't family, but we called him Uncle Brian. He was one of your dad's friends from college. He used to watch you sometimes." I stared at them, trying to process. My dad took over. There was a falling out. We cut him out of our lives completely. He had issues, and I made it very clear he wasn't allowed near you again. My stomach turned cold. "Why?" I asked. "It doesn't matter," my dad said quickly. "What matters is that he's gone." The only other thing they admitted was that Brian had a scar on his forehead from a car accident years earlier. I didn't need them to spell it out. The man in my dreams, the man at my window, was him. Another year passed. The dreams slowed, only once or twice a year, until one summer night when something shifted. I woke up from the dream, sweating, my chest tight. Out of habit, I glanced at my window, and I saw movement, a flicker, a shadow pulling away into the darkness. I screamed for my parents. My dad bolted outside barefoot while my mom held me. When he came back, he whispered something to her, and they made me stay in their room while they called the police. Except, I never heard sirens, never heard voices. The next day, my dad admitted he'd seen faint footprints in the dirt beneath my window. He swore it couldn't have been Brian. Said there was no way Brian could have known where we lived after we moved, but he couldn't explain the footprints. That was the last time I ever had the dream. My parents never brought it up again. If I asked, they'd change the subject. But I can't stop thinking about it. What if Brian really was out there watching me? What if every time I had that dream, there was someone at my window? Some noise, some presence, that my brain translated into those half-lucid nightmares? Or worse, what if it wasn't Brian at all, but someone else entirely, and my childhood memories just filled in his face? I'll never know for sure. But every summer when the nights are hot and I crack the window for air, I can't help glancing toward the glass, half expecting to see gray hair, a scar, and fingernails scratching to get inside. Story 3. I still remember the last day of 8th grade like it was yesterday. It was June of 2015 in a suburban town called Havenbrook, Ohio. And if you've ever experienced the final day of middle school, you'd know the energy. Teachers were exhausted, kids were restless, and nobody really cared about lessons. The entire building buzzed with this bittersweet feeling, half excitement for summer, half sadness, knowing things would never be the same again. The hallways were jammed with kids carrying Sharpies, hunting down their classmates to sign their yearbooks. It was chaos, but the kind of chaos that feels fun. I had a backpack full of scribbles and doodles, cheesy one-liners like, "Don't forget me," and "Have a great summer, dude." Stuff you don't think about twice, but feels important in that moment. My middle school was massive, easily over 1,200 students. To manage the madness, the teachers came up with this system where yearbooks would get collected and passed around different classrooms so everyone had the chance to sign. On paper, it sounded like a decent plan, but in reality, it was a free-for-all. Anyone could write in anyone's book, whether they were your best friend or someone who barely knew your name, and sometimes someone who shouldn't even have been there at all. When I finally got my yearbook back, I sat in the cafeteria flipping through the pages, smiling at the goofy notes from my closest friends. But then I froze. At the bottom of one page, right below the school portrait of a boy I didn't recognize, was a signature. The name was written in neat, almost old-fashioned cursive, Ethan Mercer III. I didn't know an Ethan Mercer, not in my grade, not in my school, not anywhere. And the message he left under his name wasn't your typical summer send-off either. It said, HAGS, I'll be seeing you again. I stared at it, my stomach tightening. HAGS, have a great summer, was normal enough. But that second part, it didn't sit right with me. The wording was simple, but there was something about it that felt personal. Too personal. I turned to my friend Ryan sitting next to me. "Hey, do you know this guy?" "Ethan Mercer?" Ryan shrugged. "Never heard of him. Probably some random kid messing around. Don't overthink it." And maybe he was right. After all, it was the last day. What was I going to do? Track him down? By the end of the afternoon, we were released into summer, and I left the whole thing behind in the noise and laughter of kids spilling out of the building for the last time. But it wouldn't stay behind. Not even close. That night, I hosted a sleepover at my house with my best friends, Ryan, Marcus, and Leo. My parents' place was 3 stories tall, and we basically had free reign in the basement. It was perfect, far enough away that my mom and dad wouldn't hear us yelling at Call of Duty or eating chips at 1 o'clock in the morning. By 2 a.m., we were wired on Mountain Dew and half asleep at the same time, messing around with my dad's old treadmill and rowing machine. That's when it happened. A sharp knock. It came from the storm door at the far end of the basement. The sound was clean, deliberate, not like a branch or the wind. Knock, knock, knock. The 4 of us froze. "Who the hell knocks on a storm door at 2 in the morning?" Marcus whispered. We all just stared at each other, waiting for someone else to make the first move. The knocking came again, this time in a rhythmic pattern, like whoever was out there wanted us to know it wasn't an accident. Before I could stop him, Leo blurted out, "Who's there?" I wanted to strangle him. He had just announced to whoever was outside that we were down there. There was a pause, then a voice answered, "Come around to the back door." It was high-pitched, almost cheerful. Definitely a teenager's voice. My heart thudded against my ribs. Something about the tone, too casual, too friendly, made my skin crawl. Ryan smirked, whispering, "Dude, maybe it's one of the kids from school messing with us." But I wasn't laughing. I had this sinking feeling that I already knew who it was. The 4 of us crept upstairs toward the back door, moving as quietly as possible. Through the narrow glass pane beside it, I could see a figure standing under the weak glow of the porch light. And when his face came into view, my blood ran cold. It was him, the kid from my yearbook. Ethan Mercer III. He stood there like he belonged, his expression calm, almost expectant, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Ryan started reaching for the lock. "Let's see what he wants." "No," I hissed, yanking his hand back. "I know who that is." "He's the one who signed my yearbook. The one I told you about that stopped them." Ethan noticed us talking and tilted his head, then began waving us over toward the kitchen window like he wanted a private conversation. Against my better judgment, I cracked the window open just a sliver. My friends hovered behind me. Up close, his eyes looked glassy and unblinking. His voice, though, was chipper. "Oh, so you got my message," he said. "I'm Ethan. We could have been friends, you know. I always watched you from a distance." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "How do you even know where I live?" For a moment, his smile didn't falter. Then he didn't answer. Instead, Marcus muttered, "This is creepy as hell, man. Just go home." That was the wrong thing to say. Ethan's smile disappeared. His head twitched sideways and his expression darkened into something twisted, full of rage. "You don't get it," he snapped, voice rising. "I hate your friends. They don't deserve you. They all should die. You should have been my friend." He lunged at the window, trying to force it open. I slammed it shut and locked it, my heart hammering. Ethan's face twisted, his teeth bared. He started pounding on the glass with his fists, snarling like an animal. "Open the door! Open it!" The noise was so loud my parents thundered down the stairs. "What the hell is going on?" my dad barked. At that, Ethan bolted. By the time my dad yanked open the back door in his pajamas, the yard was empty. In the morning, my parents called the school. That's when we learned something that still chills me. Ethan Mercer had been expelled 3 weeks before the year ended. His name shouldn't have been anywhere near my yearbook. The only reason his photo was still in there was because the yearbooks had been printed earlier in the year, which meant Ethan had snuck back into the school on the last day just to sign that message to me. When the school tried to contact his family, they hit a wall. The address on file was empty. The phone numbers were disconnected. It was as if Ethan Mercer and his parents had vanished off the map. No one ever saw him again. Not at the mall, not at football games, not around town. He simply disappeared. For weeks I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like Ethan creeping around outside. Every knock at the door made me jump. My parents tried to reassure me, saying he was just a troubled kid who fixated on me for no reason. But the thing I can't get past even now, years later, is this. How did he know where I lived? I never spoke to him. I never hung out with him. Hell, I didn't even know he existed until I saw his name in my yearbook. And yet that night, he was at my back door, smiling like he'd been invited. To this day, I keep my yearbook locked in a box at the back of my closet. Sometimes I take it out and stare at that message in his neat, old-fashioned cursive. "Hags, I'll be seeing you again." And I wonder if maybe he still means it. Story 4. I was 23 when this happened, and I don't think a single year of my life since then has passed without me remembering it in detail. Back then, I was living what felt like a comfortable transition period. I'd just graduated from college in Chicago with a communications degree, had landed a decent entry-level job in marketing, and was saving every dollar I could by living at home with my parents in Naperville, Illinois. Some of my friends used to tease me for still living with mom and dad, but honestly, it was the smartest move I could have made. My parents didn't charge me rent, they fed me, and I had my childhood bedroom with all my old posters still hanging on the walls. Stability, comfort, and savings. Not a bad combination for someone just stepping into adulthood. But comfort can be deceiving, and what happened the summer I moved back home still shakes me. I wasn't a party girl by any stretch. I wasn't the kind of person you'd find downing shots in a sweaty bar every weekend. My life was simple. Wake up, go to work, hit the gym, scroll on my phone or read in bed, sleep, repeat. My idea of a fun weekend was hiking or movie nights, not blackout drinking. But that June, my closest college friend Madison invited me to her family's summer beach house in South Haven, Michigan. Madison's family had money. Her dad was a corporate lawyer and her mom a surgeon. So when she said beach house, I wasn't picturing some wooden shack. And I was right. The group included 4 of us. Me, Madison, our other 2 college friends, Claire and Vanessa. Madison described the place like a dream. Modern, private, tucked away on its own quiet stretch of beach away from tourist chaos. "It'll be the perfect weekend," she promised. I was hesitant at first. I'm a homebody by nature, but eventually I agreed. A weekend away with my best friend sounded like a harmless escape. When we pulled into the driveway that Friday afternoon, my jaw actually dropped. Madison hadn't exaggerated. The house looked like something from a magazine. Sharp lines, big glass windows reflecting the lake, dark wood paneling, stone steps leading to the beach. If you'd told me the place belonged to a celebrity, I would have believed it. "Holy crap, Mads," Claire said as we unloaded our bags. "Are you sure your family even needs this house? This is like mansion-level rich people flexing." Madison laughed. "Yeah, I know. My dad calls it his investment property. But honestly, it just sits empty 9 months of the year. We're lucky to have it." We decided not to stay in separate rooms. Instead, we all piled into one of the kids' rooms with 2 sets of bunk beds, like we were 12 again. It felt fun, nostalgic, a little messy, exactly what you want when you're away with friends. The first night, none of us planned to get wild. We grabbed some hard seltzers, carried a speaker, and walked down to the sand to stargaze. The lake was calm, the moon bright, the air sticky but cool near the water. We sat in a circle, toes buried in the sand, laughing and trading stories. That's when we noticed the light. At first it was faint, a flickering glow down the shoreline, swinging side to side. We all grew quiet, watching it. As it drew closer, it became obvious. It was a flashlight. And soon we saw figures, 3 of them. Male voices drifted over the waves, along with laughter. "Probably just some guys staying nearby," Vanessa said casually, though I could tell she was paying attention. One of the men yelled out, "Hey! How's it going?" His voice was young, friendly. Madison called back, "Good!" And the group veered toward us. Soon enough, we were face to face with 3 guys who looked our age, maybe mid-20s. Sun-bleached hair, tank tops, beers in hand. They looked like your typical lake weekend types. "Mind if we join you?" one asked. We exchanged glances. Claire shrugged. "Sure, why not?" So they sat with us. At first, everything seemed normal. They were charming enough, joking about the water temperature, asking where we were from. The conversation felt harmless. "You girls here all summer?" one asked. "Just the weekend," Madison said. "Family's place." "Nice," another guy replied, taking a swig of his beer. "Wish we had a setup like this. We're crashing a rental up the road." They weren't pushy or creepy at first, but as the night wore on, I noticed their questions getting probing. "So no boyfriends came with you?" one asked, grinning. Claire rolled her eyes. "Nope, just us." "That's kind of dangerous, don't you think? 4 girls out here alone?" His tone was joking, but it made me stiffen. Madison laughed it off. "We'll be fine." By midnight, the guy suggested we head back to their rental. "More drinks, some music. Come on, it'll be fun." I hesitated. My gut screamed no. "I think I'm going to call it a night," I said, standing. Vanessa frowned. "Seriously? Already?" "Yeah, I'm tired. You guys go ahead." Madison hesitated, but then shrugged. "All right, your loss." I trudged back alone toward the beach house. It was around 3 a.m. when my phone buzzed. A FaceTime from Madison. Groggy, I answered. Her voice was frantic. "Emily! Oh my God, you need to get my car right now. Claire and Vanessa, they took them." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? Who took them?" "The guys, those guys. Please, Emily, hurry. They shoved them into a car. I saw it. Please just get the car." I shot out of bed, heart pounding. My hands shook as I threw on a hoodie and bolted downstairs. "Why the hell are you calling me and not the police?" "I already did," she cried, "but they need time." "I need you to follow them before they disappear." I grabbed Madison's keys, swung open the gate, and floored it onto the empty road. Madison stayed on the line, voice trembling as she directed me. They went left, like 10 houses down the beach. Black SUV, tinted windows. My chest felt like it was caving in. Oh my God, oh my God. Up ahead I spotted it, a dark SUV cruising slowly. "I see them," I whispered. "Don't let them see you," Madison warned. "Stay back." "The cops are on their way," I called 911, voice shaking, relaying the details. The dispatcher told me to keep distance, stay on the line. Minutes crawled like hours. Then, flashing lights. Patrol cars cutting off the SUV. My car screeched to a halt behind them. The scene erupted. Officers yanking doors open, men pulled out at gunpoint, screams filling the night. And then the trunk. An officer swung it open. Claire and Vanessa, bound, bruised, terrified. The rest is a blur. The guys were arrested. Turns out the house they were renting wasn't theirs at all. They'd broken in, squatting while the real owners were away. Their charges stacked sky high: kidnapping, assault, trespassing, intent to traffic. Claire and Vanessa survived, thank God. But the trauma stayed. Therapy, family support, years of recovery. That's what it took. As for me, I couldn't go near a beach for a long time. Couldn't sit around a campfire with strangers. Couldn't trust late-night laughter in the dark. Even now, I sometimes wake up sweating, heart racing, replaying Madison's voice screaming through the phone. Because the truth is simple. If I hadn't gone back to the house early, if Madison hadn't spotted what she did, if the police had been even a few minutes slower, my friends wouldn't be here today. That's the kind of thought that never leaves you. Story 5. I'll start this story by being completely honest with you. I don't scare easy, never have. I grew up in a quiet New England town where not much ever happened. The type of place where you knew everyone at the grocery store by name, and Friday nights were spent in somebody's garage drinking cheap beer around an old radio. Because of that, I always figured city people exaggerated when they talked about scary nights or sketchy encounters. But what happened last summer? That was different. That was the one time in my life I woke up and thought, yeah, I might have actually been close to dying last night. Let me back up a little. I was 24 at the time, just a year out of college, still living with my parents in Massachusetts. I wasn't unhappy with it. Cheap rent, free food, and I was saving up to get my own place. My best friend since middle school, Derek, had done a little better for himself. He had connections in the East Coast music scene, specifically the electronic/house crowd that threw huge events up and down New Jersey and New York. Derek wasn't famous, but he was known. His team ran a small promotions company that managed to land some surprisingly big-name DJs for clubs, warehouses, and even outdoor spaces. I didn't fully get the scene, but I supported him. Plus, being his friend had its perks: free entry, free drinks, and a taste of VIP life I never would have seen otherwise. Last July, Derek was hyped about their biggest event yet, a 4th of July weekend party at a massive beachfront club in Ocean Pines, New Jersey. He wanted me and our other close buddy, Ethan, to come down early, help him set up, and of course, stick around for the show. I had no reason to say no. It was a scorching Friday afternoon when we loaded Derek's SUV with his gear and drove from Massachusetts to Jersey. 6 hours of traffic, gas station coffee, and Ethan clowning around in the back seat with a Bluetooth speaker. By the time we hit Ocean Pines, the boardwalk was already packed with tourists in swimsuits carrying flags and sparklers. "Place is a madhouse," Ethan muttered as we rolled down the window, the salty air mixed with the heavy bass of music coming from every direction. Derek grinned. "Exactly how we want it. Tonight's gonna be wild." We pulled up to the venue, a glass-fronted mega club with neon banners, and I'll admit I felt a little out of place. Derek walked in like he owned the place, while Ethan and I hung back. Derek had to meet with his team, so Ethan and I were left to our own devices. The bar staff had been told to give us whatever we wanted. Derek's perk extended to us, so predictably, we started drinking way too early. "Bro," Ethan laughed, slamming back a whiskey soda, "we're gonna be wrecked before the first beat drops." 4th of July weekend, I said, raising my glass. No rules. Hours blurred. By the time the first DJ came on, we weren't just buzzed, we were full-on drunk. But it didn't matter. The club was alive with light and sound, people spilling across the dance floor like one breathing organism. That's when it started. Around midnight, Ethan nudged me toward the bar. 2 women had just walked up, both dressed sharp, not the casual beach crowd. One introduced herself as Alyssa, the other as Marina, tall, confident, wealthy-looking. The kind of women you could tell were used to attention. "You guys here for the holiday weekend?" Marina asked, swirling her drink. "Sort of," Ethan slurred. "Our boy runs this event." "We're VIPs, basically," Alyssa smiled at me. "That right?" "Guess we found the right guys." It was weird. They bought us drinks. I remember thinking that was unusual. Girls didn't usually do that in this scene. But drunk as we were, we didn't complain. Half an hour later, Marina leaned in close. "You guys should come back with us. My place is right on the beach." Ethan grinned. "Better than crashing at Derek's rental, huh?" I hesitated, but went along. We left the club together, the boardwalk lights casting everything in a surreal glow. We walked along the beach, the waves muffling our voices. The girls asked us questions, not the usual surface-level stuff, but deeper ones. Where we grew up, what our families were like, our ambitions. It felt strange, too intimate for strangers at 1 a.m. At one point, I stumbled and said, "Man, I feel drunker than before." Like way drunker, Ethan rubbed his temple. "Yeah, same. My legs feel like rubber." Alyssa laughed lightly. "That's just the ocean air. It hits different." But it didn't feel like air. It felt like something was crawling through my bloodstream, weighing me down. My mouth was heavy, my arms numb. Just when I thought I'd collapse, the sensation passed, like a wave receding. When we got to the house, I was stunned. It wasn't some cheap beach rental. It was a mansion. White pillars, massive windows, an endless balcony overlooking the ocean. Inside, it was even stranger. Minimalist but luxurious. Sculptures on pedestals. Walls so clean they almost gleamed. It didn't feel like a lived-in house. It felt staged, like a museum. Before I could process it, Ethan and Marina disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with Alyssa. She smiled, leaned closer, and whispered something in my ear, though I can't for the life of me remember what. Then she leaned in to kiss me, and everything went black. I've blacked out from alcohol before, but this wasn't that. Normally I'd have flashes, bits of conversation, flashes of walking. This time, nothing. Just pure void. The next thing I knew, sunlight was stabbing my eyes. I was lying in a patch of bushes on the side of a road. My head throbbed. My clothes weren't mine. They were a stranger's. Oversized shorts, a random t-shirt, my wallet, keys, phone, gone. The only thing left were my shoes, except the laces had been ripped out, both of them, and they were soaking wet. I sat up, trembling. Where the hell am I? Across the road stood a 7-Eleven. I staggered inside, barefoot and dazed. The clerk looked at me like I was homeless. "Phone," I croaked. "Please, mine was stolen." After a pause, he slid his across the counter. I dialed my sister, the only number I still knew by heart. She freaked when I explained. Then, as I handed the phone back, the bell over the door jingled, and Ethan walked in. He looked just as wrecked, same blank eyes, same stolen clothes. We stared at each other before hugging like brothers who'd just come back from war. "Dude," he whispered, "what the hell happened?" We called the cops. To their credit, they came quickly and listened. But the longer we talked, the less they seemed to believe us. "Maybe you just had too much to drink," one officer said. "You think we walked an hour to some random town and swapped clothes with strangers?" I snapped. They exchanged a look. They didn't say it, but they thought we were making it up. Then my sister called back. She'd tracked my phone. It was pinging from a parking lot nearby. The cops drove us there, and sure enough, our phones were lying side by side on the asphalt, charged, untouched. "See?" the officer said. "Probably just dropped them." But it didn't explain the clothes, the missing wallets, the blackout. Ethan and I weren't satisfied. After getting a ride back to Ocean Pines, we retraced our steps along the beach. Eventually, we found the house. Same white pillars, same balcony. We rang the bell. An older man answered. "Can I help you?" he asked, suspicious. I said carefully. "Does a girl named Marina live here?" "Or Alyssa?" He frowned. "No, and I've lived here 20 years. Never heard those names," I laughed awkwardly. "Guess they were lying then." "Sorry to bother you." The man shrugged, closed the door. Ethan and I just stood there, silent. Walking away, I couldn't shake it. That nauseating, gut-deep feeling. Something had happened to us, something bad, and we would never know what. No charges, no suspects, just holes in our memory and the knowledge that, for 10 hours, we weren't ourselves. Even now, I can't explain it. Were we drugged, kidnapped? Used for something we can't remember? Sometimes I dream about that house, the sculptures, the way Alyssa's eyes seem to linger on me like she knew something I didn't. And every time I wake up, I think about those shoelaces, removed deliberately for some reason I can't understand. Maybe one day I'll get an answer, maybe not, but I know this much. That night was the scariest summer story of my life. Thank you so much for your love in watching the video, and I truly appreciate you for liking and subscribing.